Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining us on YouTube tonight. My name is Patricia Lucardi, and I'm a thermographic technician, and I've been working with Dr. Ionello for about the past 3 years. So some of the slides we're going to see tonight packed with information. They will be case studies that we can see through thermography. But tonight's subject is very important, and it is something we're going to speak about for not just men and women, but its impact on our families and its environmental estrogens impact on men and women's reproductive system. So we're going to look at some of the statistics of breast cancer in America. 300,000 new cases in women, 2,500 new cases in men, and just last week I was speaking to the Male Breast Cancer Coalition, and I was speaking to the group in New York City, and they're seeing an alarming rate of men from the 9/11 responders that are coming up with breast cancer. So we'll address that a little bit later. But if you know 9/11 responders that were on ground zero, let's talk about that later in the question and answer part. So 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer, and breast cancer is the leading killer of women 35 to 54 of age. 8 out of 10 cancers are from environmental toxins, and that's expected to increase 30% by 2020. And 15 to 25% of breast cancer cases are overdiagnosed. This is what we're going to look at too, the overdiagnosis of breast cancer. And this is a national cost of $17 billion on breast cancer, and $15 billion is spent on breast cancer research. And just a small 1 to 3% is spent on prevention. So let's look at some of the toxins that we have in our life. Fluoride, insidious. Fortunately, I live in a little village. They took fluoride out of our water, but New York City, most cities have fluoride in them. I highly suggest that you get a water filter that you can put in through your bathtub, because if you're taking a bath and you're just filtering the water you drink, you're still taking a bath. Chlorine, bisphenol A, BPA, parabens, phthalates, mercury bromide. It's getting to be that we really can't drink municipal water anymore, and we certainly don't want to be drinking out of plastic bottles. But again, it's coming from the air that we breathe, it's coming from the beauty care products that we put on our body, from our food, from the meat that we eat. I mean, did anybody see, well, it's an old movie, 1967, called The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman? Well, there was one line there, and he was going into becoming a businessman, and his mentor said, "Son, the future's in plastics." Well, you fast forward 52 years now, and we're living in a sea of plastic. If you have not seen Plastic Ocean, please. Our fish have plastics. Everything that we touch has some form of plastics now. So with that being said on plastic, I'd like to mention a really interesting study they did at Duke University. Remember I said that in breast tissue samples around the country that women had plastics, BPAs, and parabens, and these plastics in their breast tissue. And again, when you think about the deodorant, goes under the arm, and it goes under the lymphatic system, so parabens are found. But Duke University did a very interesting study. They had breast cancer cells in a test tube, and they found that they started to proliferate, and they were like, well, what's this all about? And they figured out that it was the test tubes were leaching the plastic. So they decided to take household plastics, you know, your Tupperware and plastic bags or whatever they use from people's, you know, what they use around their kitchen, and they chopped them up and they put them in a petri dish with breast cancer cells, and it proliferated. It was like throwing gasoline on fire. I want to talk about beauty care. And it's not just, now there's an increase in men's beauty care. They're up there with women. So you look at the hairspray. I don't know if guys are using hairspray, but those are endocrine disruptors. And what an endocrine disruptor is, these are xenoestrogens. These are chemicals that mimic our natural estrogen. So these are called hormone disruptors, xenoestrogens, or endocrine disruptors. So you look at blusher, eyeshadow, foundation, body lotion, fake tan, these all have endocrine disruptors. And you think of our children, our daughters, that are using the cheapest of products. And you look at little girls that are going to the dollar store and they're buying, the cheapest of the cheapest because they can't afford to go to, Whole Foods and buy the better products. But whatever we put on our skin is absorbed in 27 seconds. So this is something to consider changing your beauty care, because they've done breast tissue samples around the country. And what are they finding? Parabens from deodorant. They're finding BPA, bisphenol A. These are all plastics that they're finding in our breast tissue. So it's something to consider, is changing small, and your beauty care product should be one of the first things that you do. So toxic assets, the growing breast. I don't know if Jane Mansfield had breast implants, but the breasts have continued to grow over the last 50 years. And in 1970, it was 34B, and now we have an H cup. An H cup. So why are we seeing this increase in the growing breast? It's not limited to women. This is a man with large breasts, and breasts are getting larger in men. They even have breast reduction in men. And we're seeing little boys with breasts. We're seeing little girls that they're dropping, their puberty is starting at earlier ages, sometimes as young as 7 years old. This is an impact because we're swimming in a sea of estrogens. This was in NPR, maybe going back 10 years, but in the Chesapeake Bay, that was in Maryland, they were finding that male fish were becoming female. And I just came across the actual chemical that was. I can't remember it, but again, at least I said, oh, that's what's happening. But now they're finding that male frogs have eggs on their testes. So again, maybe this is the feminization of men, because men are having a decrease in their testosterone. Since 1983, there was a 25% decrease, and now there is a 45% increase in their testosterone, and they're seeing a decrease in sperm count. So let me actually correct myself on those numbers of the male hormone rates, how they're changing. It was in 1982-83 that there was a 25% decrease in testosterone, and this is where I messed up on the last one, and there's a 45% increase in estrogen, and the sperm count continues to drop in men. So estrogen dominance. We have our own estrogens in our body, but there's also the estrogens, again, that are coming in from these foreign estrogens. And it enters the body like a little keyhole, because our body recognizes it as estrogen. But once it gets on the body, it doesn't act like estrogen. It goes to these receptor sites, and particularly on fatty tissue, on adipose tissue, just like you wouldn't eat the fat on a fish because that's where the toxins reside. So the more fat we have on our body, or adipose tissue, that's where these toxins reside. So in this image on the left of the full body, the trunk of this woman, you can see how all of these mottling dark spots show up. And in thermography, the toxins will show up as dark spots, as heat spots. So this is heat in her body. This is the need. It is imperative to consider doing a detox. Not just one detox, but traditionally, in some systems, particularly in Chinese medicine, it's something that you would do with every season change. Dr. Iannello has brilliant detox systems here. So please ask about that. The image on the upper right, those are also receptor sites that are filled with foreign estrogens. So on a 1 to 10, she's a 10, so she was pretty toxic. So again, thermography is a wonderful way of actually seeing real live time of what your body looks like, because it could look different a month from now, 6 months from now. So what you want to do is to get a baseline and see the real lifetime of your body, and then do the detoxing, do the protocols for to release these estrogens from the body, and whatever other findings there might be. And then when you come back in 6 months, you're going to see wonderful results. Okay, so no available testing for women under 40. Now we're talking about breast cancer screening. And there's 47,000 deaths every year from women because they're not getting a mammogram that early, but younger and younger women are starting to have breast cancer. This is an image of a woman who is a nursing mother with inflammatory breast cancer. And breast cancer will always be a tragedy that befalls any woman, but it's even greater when it's a younger woman because she's faced with this crisis because the tumors tend to be more aggressive. And a younger woman is not considering, doing a mammogram because the age is usually 40 to 45. But again, it's starting to creep into the lives of younger and younger women. So what will you do now that mammograms have been proven to be harmful and ineffective? There's been two major studies. It's been on TV, it's been in the newspapers. It's here one day, gone the next. So if you didn't catch it, then it's been out there. But again, you're not going to be getting this from your doctor. The two major studies, one was a 30-year study at the Journal of American Medicine, and the other one was the British Medical Journal. That was a 25-year study. And what they found that women are being overdiagnosed, overtreated. 1.3 million women were given all the treatment from radiation, chemotherapy, mastectomies, and found that they didn't even have cancer. Ductal carcinoma in situ has been overdiagnosed, and what they've come up with is that the radiation and the harm outweighs the good. So for every 1,000 women screened, 2 women will have found the cancer, and 4 women could get cancer or do get cancer from the radiation. I'd like to read 2 quotes. One is by Dr. Christiane Northrup, and she's been an advocate for women's health for years and also an advocate for thermography. Support the cure. We are in Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We prefer to call it Breast Health Awareness Month. So she said, support the cure, places emphasis on women contracting breast cancer and Western medicine curing them, rather than teaching women what we can all do to prevent it in the first place. And using words such as detect, screen, and special populations implies that you will inevitably get cancer and you need to plan for it. In fact, getting a regular mammogram is actually more harmful because you are subjecting your healthy breast to cancer-causing radiation. And the other one is by Dr. Peter Ghosh from the Nordic Cochrane Center, and that was written in the Royal Society of Medicine 2014, entitled Mammography Screening is Harmful and Should Be Abolished. So he says, I believe if screening had been a drug, it would have been withdrawn long ago. I have often reported on the adverse effects of mammography, which are many, from a radiobiological and psychological risk of the procedure itself, to the tremendous harm and overdiagnosis and overtreatment. It is becoming ever increasing that those who subject themselves to screening as preventive measures are actually putting themselves in harm's way unnecessarily. So let's look at what mammograms have to offer us. It emits ionizing radiation, and that is the most dangerous type of radiation that we can actually receive. It may be painful. I'd like to share, I have 2 patients, actually 3, but 2, well, all 3 had such intense acute bruising from their mammogram that 2 went on to have cancer a year later where that bruise was, and the other one, it keloided, and to this day she's doing vitamin E, vitamin this, vitamin that. She's doing that in laser treatments to reduce this huge keloided scar that she got from too much pressure and an acute bruise. So 80% of biopsies are false positives, and this is the National Institute of Health. So the good news is that 80% of what they're finding on our breast is just benign, but we have to look at, again, we're living in such toxic times, and our breasts are becoming like the canary in the mine. So 10% of these found on a mammogram are false negatives. This is National Institute of Health. So the mammogram guidelines are being challenged at this time, and they're saying this is too much radiation for a woman under 40 and 50, but the guidelines were actually to the age of 52. But I will tell you, the phones are ringing off the wall from the age of 40 to come get your yearly mammogram. So I know in Long Island, because I've seen the advertisements on train trestles, but they are promoting this 3D tomosynthesis mammograms. So if a woman has dense breast, it really is like looking for a snowball in a snowstorm, and we're going to look at a slide on that one. So it's an ineffective way of using a mammogram with dense breasts, but they will recommend a 3D tomosynthesis, but that delivers 30% more ionizing radiation. So the National Cancer Institute states that radiation is a risk factor for malignant tumors. In just 4 films, that's usually 1 session, and if a woman has dense breasts, most likely they're going to be doing more films, but this exposes a woman to 1 rad, that's radiation absorbed, or 1,000 times more than a chest x-ray. And the Lancet is a very prestigious medical journal, and it is quoted saying, if cancer is present, the extreme compression during a mammogram can help cancerous cells to spread. So conventional detection. It's either yes, you have it, no, you don't. It's an anatomical approach. If it's a lump, bump, cyst, tumor, it can be found on an MRI, an ultrasound, an X-ray, and a mammogram. So really, what they're saying is that no, it's not big enough to be seen, but keep coming back every year. And when it's big enough to be seen and block an X-ray beam, then we can treat it. So breast thermography. This is a non-invasive, evidence-based adjunct. Again, it's an adjunct, a screening to help you understand what's going on in your body, particularly in your breast. So again, mammography is an adjunct, an ultrasound is an adjunct, an MRI is an adjunct, none is 100%. So this is done with anatomy and physiology, the physiology being the thermography. It detects physiology as opposed to anatomy. So it goes hand in hand with an ultrasound. Our doctors rarely recommend a mammogram. Of course, that's up to you and your doctor. But again, we choose the more environmentally safe way, and that would be an ultrasound with a thermography. So things can be spotted years before a mammogram. Some can say 7, 8, 10 years. It depends. There's fast-growing tumors. There's no radiation. It's safe at any age. You can bring your children in, you can bring your dog, you can bring your horse, anything that's alive is going to be giving off some type of information in infrared. And it detects if a bump, lump, or a cyst is metabolically active. So this is actually reducing unnecessary biopsies. Again, 80% of biopsies are unnecessary, and they've been proven, and they're called false positives. So most doctors will say, I don't believe in thermography, or I've never heard of this, or there's no proof in it, but there are over 800 published articles and studies on breast cancer and thermography. Some have followed women for 20 years, and this could be found on the Index Medicus. So the last study that they did was at Presbyterian Cornell, and out of 60 malignancies, they found through thermography 57 of these malignant tumors, and they found that it had 97% sensitivity, only 44% specificity, because they're looking at the overall heat. But if they left that for 10 years, then they would go back and it would be exactly in the same space that they found it. So again, it can see things long before conventional detection. So what is cancer? I mean, cancer, we all have cancer in our body, but fortunately we have a strong immune system. So immune system is something that we should always be considering. The cancer is the uncontrolled proliferation of cells. So again, we all have it, but we have to keep our immune system strong. And detoxing is the perfect way to do that. So this is how thermography works. Angioneogenesis is the beginning of a new blood supply. So if you look at that left corner, it says tumor. So the camera, because the camera, the infrared camera, is really like a big thermometer pointing at your body, and it's picking up heat. So anything alive has heat. So it's picking up the heat. So this is the beginning of a tumor growing. So it will pick up inflammation, and we know that inflammation is the beginning of chronic health. So does this say cancer? No, it says inflammation, but we could start getting on top of our health by doing anti-inflammatory diets, and curcumin turmeric is an excellent way to bring down heat. There's many ways that we can address inflammation, mostly through the diet, of course. It could be years before that tumor gets a blood vessel growth. Now it has the signature of cancer. That has a heat signature that is no longer just inflammation, it is cancer, and the camera picks that up. Now this is the time to start getting on top of your health, because it could take 8 to 10 years before that tumor growth on the right is large enough to block an X-ray beam. So the first two on the left, that is in the stage of prevention. This is where we want to catch it early, and not until it's actually big enough to be seen on a mammogram, an ultrasound, or an MRI. So this case study is a woman who has dense breast, and dense breasts make it very difficult to identify the tumor on a mammogram. And again, it's very easily seen on thermography. And 49% of women have dense breast, and mammography sensitivity for dense breast is as low as 27%. But 75% of dense-breasted women are at risk of false negatives if they rely solely on mammography. So digital mammography sensitivity is less than 60%. And there is a law that goes back, I think it was 2013, that requires that a mammogram provider notifies a woman if she has dense breasts, because a mammogram is really the most ineffective way of screening. So in this slide, this blue slide right here is the mammogram, and they're looking for this tumor on the left. But if you go up to the thermography image, you will see that this woman has the tumor, can be seen right there on the thermography. So again, it's like looking for a snowball in a snowstorm with a dense breast, looking for lumps, bumps, and tumors and such. So go ahead and fill out the comment section if you have comments or questions. So we're going to look at what bras do to our health. This woman on thermography shows the marking of her bra. She hasn't had a bra on for 20 minutes. And the red that you see in her upper back is lymphatic stagnation. The lymph is part of our immune system, and as lymph becomes stagnant, it does play an effect on our breast health. And bras, if you haven't seen it, it's a fascinating book. It's called Dress to Kill, and it's the history of bras and what it's doing to our breast. And one thing I highly recommend is to ditch those underwires, because what it is doing, if you can see me, it actually, that wire stops right underneath the armpit where we have lymphatic nodes, lymph nodes. There are some really good bras that are out there if you have to wear a bra. I know some women are choosing to wear like little spaghetti strap little undershirts. But if you go to right here, Tanger Mall is right here in the neighborhood. Isn't Tanger Mall right here? That's for people that live out on the North Shore. Jockey will actually fit you in a bra. They have 10 different bra cup sizes. So it's in the outlet mall. I think all jockey stores, the women are trained to actually fit women in their cup sizes, and they don't leave a mark. If you love the bras that you have and they're too tight, you can go online and get bra extenders that can give you 3 inches out of your bra. Again, ditch the underwires. True Bra is a great one. They have soft bras. If you want to do Hand Row of Switzerland, they carry cotton bras. It's very hard to find cotton these days. And what else? Who else? Again, yeah, bra extenders. But bras are really playing an effect on our breast health and our lymphatic system. So the slide that you're looking at now is leakage from the oral cavity into the lymphatic system. And you'll see on that camera right, She has dark heat around her mouth, and it's draining down into her clavicular nodes and boring right into her breast tissue and toward her nipple. Many holistic doctors and dentists are starting to understand and agree that our oral health plays into the health of our body, and not just our breast, but the lymph system. And if you haven't seen this movie called Root Cause, pun intended, it was yanked off of Netflix. It's about root canals. It's a little squeamish. I actually saw it with a dentist, and he agreed and everything about that. But again, amalgams, metal in the mouth, and root canals are playing havoc on our health, and it drains right into the lymphatic system. So you can actually buy that movie on YouTube. I can't get it on Netflix anymore, but it is available. Root Cause. So oral health is very important. We see this so much in thermography. And if you can find a biological dentist, there are many out there. That's what you want to be working with, a holistic biological dentist. So by all means, next time you have your checkup, go biological. So let's talk about the connection between iodine and breast health. We have iodine receptor sites all over our body, particularly around the thyroid and the breast. So you don't hear much about iodine and breast health because it kind of fell into the dark ages. But back in the 60s and 70s, there was a 10-year period that we became, as a nation, deficient in iodine. And what happened, they took it out of the milk, they took it out of the bread, and they replaced it in the bread, they replaced it with bromide, and which is a bad halide. And then the table salt, people started using other salts to avoid that for high blood pressure. So what they found 10 years later, between the 60s and 70s, there was the dovetailing of all the endocrine disorders. There was an increase in breast cancer, in ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, and thyroid dysfunction. So even that was when I was being raised as a child, that they even thought I had hypothyroid because all of a sudden we had no iodine. Women in Japan eat the highest amount of iodine. They have very low breast cancer rates. Well, unless they're on the American diet. But halides, the halide, which is bromide, was replaced in the bread, and it's illegal in Europe. It's illegal in California. So when you look in the store and you see King Arthur's non-brominated flour, you wonder, like, well, what is that? It's probably got to be better because it doesn't have bromide in it. Well, what it is, the bromide is actually very similar to the structure of iodine, and it doesn't allow the thyroid to uptake the iodine. So now they're linking hypothyroidism to breast cancer. So again, talk to Dr. Iannello about your iodine. Dr. David Brownstein, who is one of the top iodine doctors in the country, he found that out of 6,000 of his patients being tested, 96% came up clinically low. So again, so these are the benefits of iodine. The estrogen production becomes unbalanced and dysfunctional with iodine deficiency. There is a common thread between fibrocystic breast and breast cancer if it's insufficient with iodine, and there creates a halide toxicity. Again, the structure between iodine and these bad halides, which is a bromide, is very similar, and it doesn't allow the thyroid to uptake the iodine. And it's also connected to uterine fibroids, fibrocystic breast, ovarian cyst, infertility, thyroid nodules, pancreatic cancer, and prostate cancer. The breast tissue becomes more sensitive to estrogen, and cystic changes occur, increasing the risk of breast cancer. So iodine, the good news is it turns on natural cell death, which is called apoptosis. And it also increases the estriol, which is the positive estrogen. Again, we can't talk about breast cancer without talking about vitamin D. It is the sunshine vitamin, and no one goes outside anymore. Our children don't go outside. By law, when I was a kid, you have to be outside for an hour a day. Children just don't go out. So talk to Dr. Iannello about your vitamin D levels and what you can do about that. But the researchers at Georgetown University Medical Center in Washington, they discovered there's a connection between high vitamin D intake and reduced risk of breast cancer. African Americans are 96% more at risk because of the melatonin in their skin. And the higher dosages of D was linked to 75% reduction of overall cancer growth. And that was a 50% decrease in tumor cases of already having the disease. When vitamin D was put into a petri dish with breast cancer cells, the cells actually dried up in 2 days. And the vitamin D supplementation helped control the development of breast cancer, especially with estrogen-sensitive breast. Again, the numbers, if you can go to, it's called Grassroots Vitamin D. They have the most information out there on vitamin D, Grassroots Vitamin D. And when you get your blood done, insurance pays for this mostly. You want your numbers to be between 50 and 70. That's what the the Grassroots Vitamin D, that's their recommendation. When I was writing an article on vitamin D, they said, well, mainstream medicine said, well, 20 microls is acceptable. Well, 20 microls, you could have cancer or be having children with neurological damage. But you want those numbers to be high. 40 is something that's a little on the low side, but 50 to 70, again, are optimal. You never ask your allopathic doctor what is normal. You want optimal. I don't know if they can answer that question, but Dr. Iannello certainly can. You want to be in optimal ranges for all of your blood work. So we're going to look at a case study of a woman who had a suspicious finding on her left breast. And we will see in the gray scale, this is it right here, and in the color scale, this was the finding. And it was recommended that she comes back in 3 months, and she waited for a year. And we can see how the heat had increased. And I'm not quite sure if this was cancer, but again, heat does not take a vacation. So when you get your results back from thermography, our interpreting doctors will give you a baseline time of 3 months is suspicious, 6 months is usually in the middle, and you want to get to once a year screening. And this is the gray scale of how that heat had increased. And actually what's interesting about the gray scale, most thermographers only use the color scale, but in the black and white scale or the gray scale, 60% of the findings are there because they can look at vascular patterns, they can look at this the toxicity that shows up on the receptor site. So again, it's great to have the color scale and the gray scale. So now we're going to talk about detoxing. This is a woman on a 1 to 10. We don't really number them anymore, but we used to. But during that time, our doctors gave her a 10 of toxicity. And these are on the receptor sites. You'll see these dark spots on the camera left. And she was filled with toxins. And 6 months on nutrition, nutraceuticals, and lifestyle changes after the detox, you can see that she went from a 10 to a 5. Again, Dr. Iannello gets excellent results on this, and this is where we're going. I'd like to quote one doctor I worked with, Dr. Fradalone. He said, when you find something on your breast, you treat it like cancer. He said, you wouldn't leave toxins on your kitchen table. He said, you don't leave them on your breast. So we're here to identify real lifetime of what's in our body, what's on our body, what shows up in thermography, and take care of it, detox, because time is of the essence, because we never know when these toxins are going to flip a switch. Again, 8 out of 10 cancers are coming from toxins, and there's 85,000 in our environment, and half of them probably none of them have been tested. And this is above the essence is to consider doing a detox. So again, we want to focus on positive changes. We're talking about prevention. So in this slide at the top, you'll see on the camera right in the grayscale, this woman where the red circle is, she had a massive heat. Now, had she waited for 10 years, that certainly would have turned into an anatomical structure, which would have been cancer. But just 6 months on nutrition, nutraceutical supplementation, lifestyle changes, detoxing, look how her heat dropped. This is true prevention. So let's just recap. Thermography is not just for the breast, as you'll see here from this image. We can do cerebral vascular screening, thyroid screening, intestinal inflammation, hormone imbalances, vein thrombosis, circulation, arthritis, back pain, nerve pathology, arthritis. Again, looking for heat in the body and lack of heat. And chiropractors have been using this for years. You can see how the frame, the skeletal frame, if it's out of balance, and how it affects the hips and the gait and such as that. But tonight, if you go ahead and have your comments and your questions, but when you do comment, you have the ability, or we will give you $50 off your full body scan, which would be $450, and the upper body you get $50 off. That would be $279, and then the regular would be $255 for the breast. And go ahead and comment, and we'll answer your questions. And thank you so much for being here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you at Dr. Ionella's. So if you want more information about Breast Thermography International, that's who I'm with, and we are the leading interpreters of thermography in this country. We adhere to not just national standards, but international standards. And it's btiscan.com, and we have the science, we have the case studies. It's a wonderful educational site. And just a reminder that next Wednesday, October the 9th, we're going to be doing the screening at Dr. Ionella's. So again, if you comment, you'll get those discounts. And we look forward to hearing from you. So call the office and schedule. Again, it's October 9th. And we're going to end with some resources. And thank you so much. And I look forward to your comments. Hi again. We realize that we've gone through a lot of information, and we'd like to offer you some resources and recommendations. We're going to leave this page up for a little bit. We want to talk about the Environmental Working Group and Skin Deep. And those are two websites that you will find everything that you need to know about toxins in your life, how to shop, what to avoid, household cleaners, beauty care product. On the vitamin D research, it's the grassrootshealth.com. And they have the latest research on vitamin D. Clearly Filtered is a water filter, and you can get it for your shower that will take out fluoride. There's some great books out there. Dress to Kill, that's the link between breast cancer and bras. It's a great history. It's very interesting. Believe me, you'll want to ditch your bra as soon as you read this. No Mammograms. That's a great book. It's a tell-all on the mammograms. And The Iodine Crisis by Lynn Farrell. Again, that's, I hate to use that term, like the Bible of iodine. Could maybe call the Torah if you're Jewish, I don't know, but it's like, it's like the book that's out there, the authoritative book. Breast Cancer and Iodine by Dr. David Derry. That's a little more scientific, but he does explain the link between breast cancer and lack of iodine. Two documentaries that are fabulous. It's called Plastic Ocean, and it really makes you think twice about what we're putting into the ocean. I mean, big cigarette lighters, they're finding them in the guts of birds. I mean, oh, it's whatever. But Plastic Ocean is a great one. And Root Cause, again, you can rent it on YouTube and maybe on iTunes, but you can't get it on Netflix anymore. And you probably know that there are a lot of cleaning products out there that you can use, like if you go to Whole Foods or the health food store. Now some of the mainstream grocery stores are starting to carry, like Mrs. Meyer's, Young Living Oil has multi-purpose household cleaners, Dr. Bronner's. Deodorants, you definitely want to get something without the parabens and the aluminum. Native is one of them. Schmidt's. If you know people that sell, I think Young Living has one. Arbonne, New Skin. Those are network marketing. They have excellent deodorants. And we're going back to those wireless bras again. If you're out here in the North Shore, the Jockey Outlet, they will fit you in a bra. They're very comfortable. And I think they're all around the country. They're training these women. True and Company, you get it online. Those are softer bras. And Hanro, it used to be called Hanro of Switzerland. Beautiful, beautiful bras and lingerie, and they have cotton. It's very hard to find cotton. And again, you want to just eat organic. If you and avoid the plastics, try to replace your plastics in your kitchen with glass containers. You know, look at your beauty care products and see what your children are using, and look for non-BPA cans, you know, when you're doing your beans and such as that. And find this slide. We're going to keep it on our Facebook page, North Isle Wellness, and it's going to be up for, it's going to be up unlimited. That's what Daniel's saying. It's going to be up unlimited because we want you to have these resources. Thank you again for joining us, and we will attend to your comments. Thank you so much. We're going to leave this page up, this resources and recommendations. We're going to leave it up for a few minutes while we take your comments below, and we'll be answering your questions live. Thank you.